Why am I standing out here in the woods? I don't know, but what I do know is if you're like me, you've been searching around the internet about this lens. This is the Sony 18-105 f4 lens. You have questions like, should I buy this lens? Is it worth buying? Does it work with the a6400, the a6500, the a6300, the a6000, or the a6600? Yes, it works with all of those, and you should buy it because it's a great lens, it's cheap, it's sharp, you can shoot weddings, you can shoot birthday parties, you can shoot quinceañeras, cars. There's a lot of things that you can shoot with this, even headshots. And I'm gonna tell you why you should buy this lens on top of what I've already said. Stick around. What's up, people of YouTube? I'm Steven with Purpose Lens, and we're gonna look at the 18-105 f4 zoom lens from Sony today. If this is your first time being here on this channel, feel free to subscribe, like it, share it with everybody that you know. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So I'm gonna give you 5 reasons why you should buy the Sony 18-105 f4 lens, especially if you have an APS-C camera. That is a camera with a smaller sensor than a full frame. So number 1 is going to be the focal range. So the focal range is basically how far the lens is going to be able to reach and how wide and narrow it is. So as you zoom in, your picture is going to be a lot more narrow. As you zoom out, your picture is going to be wide. Now, the reason why you would want something like that in a lens is because if you're shooting like a video of an event or a wedding or something like that, and you want to get tight in on somebody, you can do that, but then you can also get a wide shot of everybody in the crowd. Now, if this were on a full frame camera, the equivalent would be like a 28 to about a 160 millimeter. That's a really wide range. And this lens is great at zooming. In fact, this one is actually called the power zoom. And what the power zoom is, it allows you, if you look at this little button here, when I push this to the T, the telephoto, it will zoom in. Then when I push it down on the W, it will actually go wide and pull back out. So that is a great thing to have. Now, not many people will like to zoom during their videos, but that's a personal preference. If you want to do something like that, you can. Just know that you have it in this lens. The other great thing about this lens is it's a constant aperture lens, which means when you zoom in and out, your aperture stays at f4 or wherever you put it. Unlike other lenses where they're variable apertures, which means as you zoom in, your aperture is going to change, and as you zoom out, it changes as well. So this means that your lighting and everything changes as you zoom in. That's not a good thing. So that's a plus for this 18-105. All right, so the number 2 reason to have this lens is its versatility. And again, what makes this thing so versatile is because it can zoom, you can do all types of shots. You can do headshots with photography. You can do music videos with this 18-105. You can do weddings. You can do events. You can really shoot anything. I mean, the sky is the limit. It's really up to you and your creativity. But this lens really covers a wide range of things that you can do and things that you can accomplish. So that is number 2, is just the versatility of the lens. And we already talked about the internal zoom and how that works. Oh, and I do want to, let me say something about the internal zoom. So if you're going to mount this camera to a gimbal, the good thing about this lens is the zooming is internal, which means that this lens doesn't have a tube that slides in and out of it. All the glass elements are inside of the lens. So it means that as you zoom in and out, the weight is going to shift if you're on a gimbal, and that can throw your gimbal off if you have a long lens that has a tube that comes in and out. There's some certain lenses like that. One comes to mind is a 24-70 from Canon. If you mount that on a gimbal and if you zoom out with that lens, it's going to change the whole weight of the lens because the center of balance is off. Whereas this lens, the 18-105, is all internal. So even though you're shifting the weight, it isn't as much because everything is internal. So that is another plus side on the versatility. Moving on to point 3, which is the stabilization that this lens has. Now, Sony has something called OSS, which is optical steady shot. It's their version of a steady lens. And basically what happens is there is a lens element in there that actually moves around and floats, so that when you're moving the camera around, if your camera has a little micro jitters or something like that, it'll get rid of that. You won't see that in the final footage. And when you're taking a photo, if you're zooming in, like let's say you're at 105 and you're taking a picture of a person, now without that optical steady shot, it's going to be shaky and it's going to be very difficult to get a lock on that person. But with optical steady shot, it will actually smooth everything out so that you're not having to worry about holding the camera very carefully. I mean, you still got to hold it carefully, but it makes it a lot easier, a ton easier with the OSS. So that's another thing that is a plus. And also, if you have a camera like the A6400, which doesn't have IBIS, which is in-body image stabilization, this lens will help you to be able to vlog or shoot videos or whatever, because the lens itself has stabilization inside of it. So again, this lens, there's a lot that this lens has that makes even a camera that doesn't have IBIS, it makes it a lot better. So moving on to point 4, which I think most people are even here for, is you want to know if this lens has high quality, crisp, clear images. Yes, it does. This lens right here, especially around 6.3 and up, it gets really, really sharp. And like I said, this lens, you can do some amazing stuff with it right out of the box. I will say that this lens does come with some barrel distortion and pin cushioning. And basically what that means is the center of your photo is going to be almost like a pin cushion. It's pushed in. Probably won't notice it unless you look at it side by side with another image. But if you have a Capture One or Lightroom or something like that, built into these programs, these editors, they actually have profiles which have lens corrections in them. So what that allows you to do is to be able to compensate for the distortion in the lens. But other than that, it really has really good quality, and I'm going to recommend this lens. And lastly, which brings us to part 5, is the price. This lens is roughly about $600. The price fluctuates, and I can tell you that is a great deal for what you get with this lens. The build quality is great. The picture quality is great. It has OSS, optical steady shot. It's zoom. It has power zoom. It's internal zoom. It's a constant aperture. It's a great all-around lens. It really is. If you own any of these cameras, the APS-C bodies, this is a lens that you definitely want to have in your bag or in your arsenal, because you will need it. Now let's just go over a little bit of the construction of the lens. It looks like it's made out of metal, and then there's some plastic parts here. There's a rubber ring. These controls feel really solid. Now I will go over a couple of things that are downside to this lens. One of the things is this is a focus by wire lens. Now what that means is typically lenses, when you turn your focus ring around the lens, it actually manually moves the glass elements inside of the lens. Well, with this, when you turn the ring, it actually is electronic. So it speaks to the camera, or it actually, there's a motor inside, and when you turn it, it tells that motor to move the lens elements. And what that means is there's a little bit of lag or latency, and it's hard to get it precise. Now, the other thing that this lens kind of lacks is its low light qualities. Like I said, this is an f4 lens, which means you're not going to get that much light in. So in low light situations, you're going to have to bring in some sort of lights. We're looking at the 18-105 right now. That's what I'm recording this with, and it looks good. That's because I have lighting here. But if I were to turn these lights off, which I can do, I'll just turn one off just to let you see. This is what it looks like. So you see, this is at f4. And ISO is about 250, and the shutter speed is 24 or 50, and we're shooting at 24 frames per second. When we turn the light back on, you see it looks pretty good. So remember, with this lens, you're gonna have to have adequate light. So that is one caveat to the good things of this lens is that it's not gonna do great in low light, especially with photography. With video, you can go down to 50 frames per second. Or your shutter speed is 50, so you're gonna get more light. But whereas with photography, if you're shooting that, that shutter speed, you're gonna get a lot of blurring and things like that unless you have flash. So I just wanted to talk about the negatives of this lens, but there's more positives. There's 5 positives, actually more than that outweigh the negatives. But anyway, hope this sums it up. If you're looking to get this lens, don't wait any longer. Pull the trigger, buy it. You can get it on B&H, Amazon. There are a lot of places that you can get it from. So hopefully this is helpful to you guys. If you have comments below, let me know who has this lens. If anybody has it down here, let me know. Let me know what you like about the lens and what you don't like about the lens. If you have any other questions or anything, put those down below too. And what I may do is a follow-up video if you guys want to see any more information on this lens and how it works with the APS-C bodies. Anyway, I'm Steven again with Purpose Lens. If this was helpful to you, subscribe below. I also want to mention too that you can skip through with these bars down here, but I just wanted to let you guys know I'm going to be posting more videos like this. Hopefully this was informative, right to the point, and it's helpful to you guys. But anyway, I'll holla at you guys. I'm out. Peace.